Hey, welcome, it's Shayna, and I am back this time with a little bit of a different video. Normally I'm talking through the lens of being someone autistic to probably other people on the spectrum, but this time I thought it would be really smart to do a video through the lens of somebody autistic to somebody neurotypical that's trying to help support somebody having a meltdown. And the way this video came to be is I was having a meltdown the other day and my roommate was like trying to help me, and he was like, I was looking up videos on how to support somebody while having a meltdown, and I was like, you know what, I am going to make my own because that's a really good idea. So here we are. A big warning before I get started about this video is that meltdowns are very nonsensical. So it feels a little bit odd for me to give tips that I'm like, oh, this is a blanket tips. So I'm sorry if some of these don't apply to you. And if so, please talk about it in the comments. Please correct me in the comments, or just I'm interested in hearing your experience. But I tried to make this what I think is tips that will fit most people on the spectrum having a meltdown. So hopefully it resonates, but I'm just doing my best. I just know my experiences and like the people that I've heard talk online. So yes, meltdowns are nonsensical, so it's hard to make tips, but this is my best shot. This is my best try at it, okay? I think a lot of the origins of meltdowns is somebody who's feeling a lot of overstimulation in the moment. And a lot of the times it's emotional overstimulation, and it's usually been pent up for a really, really long time, and it just suddenly bursts and pops, and it's like this huge external display of trying to get all the feelings that they have out, all these repressed things or overstimulation. Like I said, that can also be by overstimulation of senses. That's also a very common trigger of a meltdown. I think I have an older video about autism and meltdowns. So if you want to know a little bit more, you can check the down bar. I'll try to remember to link that down below. But yes, so that's just a quick summary of what a meltdown is. So my very first tip that I think is very important is that once it starts, don't try to stop it. Like, yes, there are things to do to try to manage it or calm it down. You want to help them, of course, but trying to stop it is going to be pretty useless and is only going to make the person having a meltdown probably feel worse about themselves, which will only escalate the meltdown further. And it's like, once it starts, once it's in gear, once it's going its way, there's no stopping it. Honestly, you just need to let the person let it out. Also, if you try to stop it, like, that's only repressing them more and adding to the upset, which is going to make it worse. If not right then, it will make it worse a lot later, which may be in an even worse time and even more uncomfortable setting than it is then. Accept it and let it happen. That's advice to the person on the spectrum having a meltdown too. Accept it and let it happen. As much as we want to wish it away, that's not what's gonna happen. It's just impossible. Try to avoid asking the person questions. Like, a lot of your reasoning and speaking ability is just gonna go out the window when you're having a meltdown. So trying to ask somebody about their emotions, why they're doing that, what they're feeling, or just in communicating in general is going to be really hard. They're probably going to communicate with you in looks or small words, or probably not at all. I know that when I'm having a meltdown, I can't really say much or communicate myself well much at all. So asking questions is only going to overwhelm them more. Again, only making the meltdown worse, only making things harder to handle. And a big tip is whatever they seem to be having a meltdown about, whatever set them off, is probably not what's going on in their mind right now, is probably not the main thing that's worrying them. Like, it's kind of like one of those zoom out things where it's like this small thing happened and it just ticked you off so much, it set off something that you zoom out to everything. So they're probably, so many topics away from what initially got them upset that just get off that. It probably will seem like an over exaggeration to what's happening, but just know that there's so many other things that are going on that are really upsetting them, and that is just bringing it out. That's just the catalyst. What you're seeing them be upset over and have a meltdown over is probably just the tip of the iceberg. So it would be smart to try to get to the root of the problem. Like I said, be cautious with asking questions. This is more of something to have a conversation with them when the meltdown is over, when they're more comfortable, then ask them about it. You can talk to them about it. They have probably processed their emotions by then and understand it a lot more and are able to communicate themselves well now that they know what's going on. And that communication factor also might help them to not have another meltdown about it in the future, because maybe you can help them. Maybe it's something that has to do with you. I'm not saying it is. Or maybe you can do something to help them, or now you just know for the future, whatever it might be, or even just the fact that they get to get it out and talk about it and talk through it will be very helpful as well. So just know that whatever's bothering them or whatever you think is bothering them, that's not the main thing. And if you assume it is, then they're just going to be more upset that they are like, wow, they don't get me. They don't understand this at all. And it's only going to escalate it further. Because also they're going to have a lot of trouble identifying why they're having a meltdown anyways. They're probably going to be thinking, why am I so concerned about this? Why is this bothering me so much? A lot of people on the spectrum are very logical people to a fault even. And so the fact that they're having this over emotional response is going to be very odd to them. And it'll take them a long time to figure out and identify and dissect it. So you asking them what's wrong, that whatever answer they give you will probably actually not be it, because they haven't been able to figure it out or process it much yet. A huge thing that I think is true for everyone is do not stare at them. Do not look at them while they're having a huge emotional response. Most people on the spectrum have a lot of trouble with eye contact. So having you make intense eye contact when they're extremely vulnerable, when they feel a little bit odd and uncomfortable with themselves, don't stare at them while they're having a bunch of emotions. In fact, I would honestly avoid making much of any eye contact at all. Don't call it a tantrum. Don't call it a temper tantrum. That just kind of feels belittling, and it reminds us that what we're experiencing is very unrelatable and is pinned as very childish to most people, and it just makes us feel more insecure, and again, it will only make the meltdown worse. Just use the proper term, use meltdown. I think it'll make everybody happier, you know? Like I mentioned, I think that a lot of people don't really have much ability to talk while they're having a meltdown, or just don't have the best communication skills while having a meltdown. I mean, that's already hard for us anyway, so when we're in that state, it's only going to be that much harder. But if they are talking to you, just listen to what they're telling you. And what they're telling you may be very sporadic. Like, I know when I'm having a meltdown, I want somebody with me and then I don't, and then I want somebody with me and I don't, and then I want this and then I want that, and like it's very confusing for the person themselves. But if they do ever communicate with you or say anything, just do it. I mean, obviously, unless it's like gonna hurt someone, or, you know, like obviously use logic with it. But if they're asking you to leave at that moment, just leave. If they're asking you to come back, just come back, you know? And if they aren't communicating with you, but you know that you guys are very close, like this is like you live together, you're a family member, you're in a relationship with them, you're a close friend, something like that. Like if you know that this person feels very comfortable with you and they aren't communicating with you, stay out of their line of sight, but I would say just keep an ear out. Be around. Be close enough that you know that you can hear them if they're hurting themselves. You can hear them if they're really struggling. You can hear them if they call out for you. And then they will know that there's somebody right around the corner there if they need them. And that's just a really good support to have. You know, somebody out of sight, but knowing that they're there for you. And I think that's one of the best ways that you can honestly support someone having a meltdown, is just kind of keeping to yourself, but them knowing for sure that you're there is very nice. Now, if you're somebody that's not super close to the person having a meltdown, then I would say don't make your presence known. I would say don't let them know that you're right outside the door, only a scream away. I would say try to make yourself as less known as possible, because if they're anything like me, which they might not be, again, I'm just making broad assumptions here, but if they are anything like me, then I would recommend just keeping as far away as possible. I know I have a lot of trouble showing my emotions to people. I have a lot of trouble, especially having a meltdown in front of people I don't know. So when somebody is around and I don't know them, but I kind of know them and I'm having a meltdown, it's just excruciatingly embarrassing. So I want to keep in my head thinking that, you know, they don't hear anything, they don't know, it doesn't matter, you know, just keep your head down. Don't say anything, don't make them feel uncomfortable in any way, that kind of stuff. Obviously you can ask them if they're okay, but don't comment about the ridiculous acts that might have just gone on, you know? Stay calm. Obviously, this is easier said than done. When somebody's having a meltdown, it's probably very loud, very rambunctious is an odd term to use for it. It might be violent, it may be aggressive, it just might be an outpour of emotion, and that can be aggressive in its own way. So if you can just stay calm and everything's chill, like not that everything's chill, like don't tell them like, oh, it's fine, everything's chill. Obviously, you never want to say that to somebody that's having trouble, meltdown or not. Neurotypical or neurodivergent, doesn't matter. You don't want to say that to somebody, obviously. But you keeping yourself calm and being this like level, grounded person, in a weird way, keep the attention on them. And I know that sounds odd, but it's probably when you're having a meltdown, it probably has to do a lot with like you're feeling ignored. And if this makes sense to you, like feeling ignored, even in the sense of like, I'm having a big sensory problem right now. My sensory troubles are feeling ignored, you know? Oh, I'm having a lot of troubles in something that having nothing to do with this event in my other part of my life. I'm feeling ignored in that. I'm feeling like my emotions are ignored. I feel like I'm being stepped on or something like that. Just keeping this like level kind of thing will just make it more like, yes, you're allowed to have this moment and this moment is about you. And I know that sounds weird to make it about them, but just do that for a second. They probably need it. A lot of autistic people don't feel comfortable taking the spotlight, don't feel comfortable like making it all about them. So make this about them in a weird way. Maybe that's not a good tip, but I think it is. If you are in public and they are having a meltdown, get them to a private place as quick as possible. And I know I just said earlier, like you want to listen to them. I highly doubt that if they're having a meltdown, they want to stay where they're at. But if for some reason they're like, oh, I want to stay, get them, escort them away. I promise you, like anytime that I've had a meltdown and it's in public, if I just had somebody escort me away and I didn't have a say in it and I looked back at it, I would have been so fucking thankful that I only had that meltdown around that one person. Now, I will say though, anytime that I had a meltdown, I'm always the first person to remove myself, if not as soon as possible. Just moving them in a private place just takes away a lot of the embarrassment of what's going on. And if they know that only you, who's somebody that's taking them away, that's probably very close to you, is seeing this or knowing about this, it's just gonna make them feel a lot more comforted. And yeah, drawing more attention to them is only gonna make things worse. Having more attention and more eyes on them while they're having a meltdown in that public place is only going to make things worse. So just try to shovel them out as quick as possible, you know, be their little secret service and get their ass out of there. Okay, so I got something recently that has probably been one of the best purchases in my entire life and a lot of the inspiration as to why I wanted to do this video. A big problem that I have when I have meltdowns is I kind of mentioned this before, like self-harm during meltdowns. And I think this is a pretty common thing. Everybody, that translates differently with everybody. I don't cut or anything like that, but I do want to put a lot of pressure on myself, which I also think is a common thing with people on the spectrum during the meltdowns. They want a lot of pressure. And so I want to put pressure on myself so much that I'll like slap myself, I'll bang my head, and what I always fucking do, and it's very not good, is ram my arm into the wall. Like I go like this and ram myself into the wall as hard as possible. And I have damaged multiple drywalls because of this, and that has proved very expensive and not good. I have damaged drywall right now, and that's not fun. I have to pay a lot of money to get that fixed. And so to avoid that, my roommate came up with a genius idea, and I finally got one. This is not sponsored, obviously. I just really want to share this because I think it's a fantastic tip, and if somebody that you know on the spectrum, or if you're on the spectrum and you deal with this, please, please, please get this because this is great. And it is like a strike shield, basically. Like it's something that boxers get, and basically the other person, that's the person that's not having a meltdown, can kind of go like this, grab the straps, and then the person having a meltdown can ram themselves into this part and nothing and nobody gets hurt. I mean, maybe the person having a meltdown gets hurt, but honestly, I cut myself up really bad a lot from slamming myself into walls, and anything that I did due to this will not hurt me as much as the walls will, because they're like fucking textured walls anyways. And I just like, this is one of the best things that I've ever gotten, and that's just one of the best ideas. So I would really, really recommend it. This one was about 50 bucks, which it is a little expensive, but it's something that I'm literally going to have for the rest of my life. And that drywall, the piece of drywall that I fucked up, is gonna cost me probably over $300. So the fact that this cost me $50, I'm already saving so much money on drywall in the future. I'll put the link down below to the one that I got if you're curious, because I can vouch for it. It's really nice and it's really sturdy and it's really soft, which is really important. Like I still have like a scar on the back of my body from that. Now that we're on to the more kind of like, okay, what do I do if the person having a meltdown is getting violent? or something like that. If you need to, constrain them. And of course, like, you need to know a little bit about the person before you know if they want that or if that helps. If you do know the person, you talk to them, it really helps me when somebody puts a lot of pressure on me. And it really helps me, like, obviously I don't want to get hurt. I'm not saying fucking just straight out fucking punch the fucking person, but keeping them constrained, keeping them, you know, pressure in any way usually really helps me, because there's so much pent up, insane amounts of energy in there that you almost feel like it needs to be compressed. And again, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that when I'm having a meltdown, I'm never trying to hurt anyone else. I'm only trying to hurt myself. So if somebody were to put pressure on me or somebody were to do that, I'm not going to fucking swing at them, because I'm not trying to hurt anyone else but me. Now I don't know if that's true with everyone. I have no fucking idea. That's why you need to talk to the person, because if somebody is someone that's like, no, I'm gonna get violent towards you, then, you know, stay away. That probably means that they don't want you there. So just be cautious, just know your person. But if they're okay with it, put pressure on them. It's all about open communication. You should talk to the person and know their limits, know what helps them. So that kind of stuff. And when you're doing that, if you are constraining them, if you are putting pressure on them, just make sure that you have a level head. You know, if you're upset at them, or if this is involving you, I would say don't do that, because it might make you upset. It might make you angry and you might fight back. You know, just know yourself. Everything is individual. If you know you're not somebody that's going to do that, obviously you're fine. But if you're somebody that can get angry and can get upset, or even you have meltdowns yourself, you know what I mean? Then don't. Just know. But this is great because it's good for both people. Yeah, and I feel like it feels like I'm sponsored by this thing, but I just really like it. It's really smart and really good. When a meltdown starts, again, I cannot emphasize this enough, they need to go through it all. Just let the full cycle of the meltdown happen. This can take hours. This can take a full day. This can take a fucking multiple days. Like, you just, patience, you know? You really need patience, but you just need to let it happen, because I talk about this a lot. If you don't let it out, it's gonna be worse later. If it's happening, just let it happen, you know? If they do break something, or if they do say something that's extremely rude and uncalled for, or I mean, obviously, like, if this is going into like abusive territories, this is a different situation. I'm not talking to that. But if they say something that's just a little mean, or just a little rude, or that they don't mean, or if they break something, or if they do something a little wrong and you're upset with it, unless it crosses that line, that's a whole different story. Then we're going into a different thing. But if it doesn't cross that line, let it go right now. Don't mention it to them while they're having a meltdown, because that'll only make it worse. They'll probably only say worse things. They'll probably only do worse things. They'll probably only break more things. I'm not saying that you should, you know, oh, they're having a meltdown so they get away with it and blah, 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 blah. I'm not necessarily saying that. Once you know that they're past that state, once you know that they, you know, are away from that mind frame, not having a meltdown, they're a little bit more calm, they're a little more away from it, a little bit more reflective, confront them about it, talk to them about it, you know, figure it out. Honestly, I'm sure they'll feel bad, and I'm sure that they'll apologize to you first anyways. I know that I always do. And I'm sure that they'll be more than willing to hear you and get it worked out, but that's only because they're separated from it. When they're in the moment, it's only going to make them worse. It's only going to make them feel bad, and they're only going to have more extreme of a meltdown, and only more bad things can potentially happen. So the main tip is like really just trying to let the situation happen with not adding more to it. And again, I'm not telling you to ignore your feelings. I'm not telling you to forget about yourself just because, oh, they're having a meltdown. Just in the moment, just to make it not worse. Confront them later, be honest. I mean, you know what I mean? But let them have their mind back on. Like I said, it's a lot of times, it's really hard to talk and process things while you're in a meltdown, so they're probably not in the mind frame that they can understand what's going on anyways. When they are kind of done with the main meltdown, when they have kind of settled down a little bit, make sure that they take the rest of the day off. If they can, if there's any way, again, I know that's a privilege, but if they can take the rest of the day off, please make sure they do. That's so important. It's so draining to have a meltdown. I'm always so exhausted. My body hurts, my mind hurts. Everything is just so tired. and I can't think right. Anything that I do or make or film or whatever it may be just will be garbage. So just give them that day, because if they try to work their way through it, then again, that day they'll only need some other time. Just like that when you don't eat food, like when you don't eat calories, your body still needs that later on. Just like when you don't sleep, like your body needs to make that up later on. It doesn't just magically get okay. That's the same way with emotions. So just give them the day off a little bit. Obviously, I'm not saying that you need to baby them and that kind of stuff, but just be more sensitive to them. Maybe do something extra for them, or if they are a little bit neurotic, like I know I'm pretty neurotic, like just do the little things that they like for them. Like, oh, you know that they don't like any lights on, just make sure that you're the one doing it. If they like a certain food and it brings them comfort, make sure they get that food that day. Just make them comfortable, because you only want to have a meltdown last a day if it does happen. You don't want it to drag on even more. So giving them that time to rest will pretty much ensure that it's not going to happen again from the same issue, you know? If they do need to go anywhere, or you go and get food, or they desperately need to do something, or whatever it may be, if you can assist them, go with them. Because when you've had a meltdown earlier on and you're just freshly recuperating from it, and you go out, any little thing can spark it and just start it like nothing. It can really offset it. Like I know I was having a meltdown. I went out by myself to get food. The food got on my jeans and I practically had a whole other meltdown. So just make sure that you're with them, just because, like I said, they are hypersensitive that day, so you do kind of have to be hypersensitive to them. The main tip is just, if you can, stay calm. Be that neutral presence with them throughout. Treat them as though they're having a sick day. You know, treat them as though they're homesick with the flu and you're kind of taking care of them, if that makes sense. Like when somebody's sick at home with the flu, you don't baby them, you don't treat them like a little child, but you're a lot more careful, you're a lot more sensitive, you do a little bit more for them. And I'm not saying that this is, because we're autistic, we should be like treated like this every day, or we should be treated like royalty every day, blah, blah, blah. But having a meltdown is a very specific occurrence, and it needs to be handled with a little bit more care, and it is mental health, so I think that it really should be treated with the same respect that we treat physical health. And please, if you're somebody on the spectrum and you have any more tips, leave them down below. I'm always curious to hear them. And if you're somebody who's supporting someone on the spectrum and you know something that helps somebody that you are close to, let me know. I'm just always curious. It might give me even more ideas to help me out too, you know? And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a little bit different. Yeah, I've been really enjoying making videos for this channel. I've been receiving a lot of lovely support. Again, your guys' comments are the fucking best. They're so sweet. And I love how many people leave such detailed comments about their own experiences. It is so interesting, and it always brings up so many things that I've even forgotten about, or that I didn't know, or whatever it is. I just really appreciate it, and I've been really enjoying it. And if you have any recommendations for videos that you want me to cover, you can leave them in the comments as well. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting me, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!